starting to work with an actual space. It's time that we can start to have fun with details. And one of the things for my sketch that I really liked was having these bridges. I liked how these organic shapes helped break up the strong verticals of all these buildings. So I'm gonna try to get some of these in here. And I'll start with this bottom left bridge. I found this great photo, and I've gone ahead and taken out the perspective, or just straightened out the verticals, masked it out, and just extended it a bit. I'm gonna grab this, make it into a smart object, and bring it into my PSD. I'm gonna scale it and place it. Now the perspective on this is gonna be a bit different because it does have a curve to it. We could line it up to our grid, and I'll show you what that looks like, but we don't need to be as precise with this element. The biggest thing we're gonna need to pay attention to with this is the scale, and just making sure that the scale of this bridge is consistent with our descending windows and building scales. So you can see I didn't straighten out the horizontals. Otherwise it would have probably lined up a little better, but it's okay. I can just kind of warp it from here. I think that's looking nice. Now we just need to patch this up to get it to wrap around this building. We'll have it wrap and kind of go downwards as if it's spiraling around this building. Yeah, something like that. And then just adding in that backside. And I'm just doing this, just painting right now, so that I can figure this out. I'm not fighting to morph elements around to fit when I haven't even figured out what the actual shape is. Yeah, and that's cool. So now that I have it figured out, I'll grab the bridge and just get the parts of it that I need to patch that in. And I'm just gonna merge it down so that I'm not worrying about a smart object anymore. Because I really just want to grab just a piece of texture. And I'm actually going to use the bottom of this as well, so I'll just duplicate this. I'm working messy right now, but I'll clean it up. It's just when you're laying things in like this, it's just easier to get it all in there and then clean it up than to work cleanly the whole time. And I'll just warp it to give it that curve. And this looks like black, but if I do a levels adjustment, or just use our checker at the top, you can see that there's actually texture underneath this bridge, and I don't want to lose all that in case I want to do any color corrections later on. So that's why I'm actually going to use another piece. And I'll just clip it onto my sketch. And if it's super dark, maybe it's easier to work with that checker on. It's just about giving this texture right now. And then because this is just a patch, I'm not gonna use an adjustment layer. I'll just hit Control L to bring up levels, just because I know it needs a little blue in the shadows and it needs to be a little darker. And I'll do the same thing with this little patch over here. I know it's going to be in shadow, so it needs to be a lot darker. I'm not matching to the plate right now, or to the painting. I'm just matching to the element. So I'll merge these down. Call it patch. Call this bridge left. Keep moving that plate down. And then I'm just going to mask out a couple things. I want these little pieces, rather than connecting to an under bridge, I want this to connect to the building. Maybe there's like little bridgeways or something like that. Same thing over here. I'll chop this bridgeway off so it has an end point. Cool. Actually, this whole little under bridge is bugging me, so I'm just going to take that out. And now I'm going to color correct this. Same thing as we've been doing. Just check the levels, get those balanced first. I'm just gonna eyeball it. That's fine for now. But we have atmosphere happening because this is stretching back in Z. So I'm just gonna grab a shadow color here. Big soft brush, click it a couple times and set this to lighten. And just tone down the opacity a bit. So now we have that nice fall off. And I'll create a soft light layer too, just to emphasize that highlight. With this soft light layer though, I'll use the blend if options to just only hit the highlights. Cool. And then the last thing I'll do with this bridge is just add a little cast shadow onto these buildings. And the way I'm going to paint the shadow in is I'm going to start with the contact shadows. So the darkest shadow is going to be where two pieces intersect. And then from there, I'll just have underneath it where it's extending out. And then I'm gonna just paint a little shadow like that. Just curving around. Since our light direction is coming from the right, it's coming down. And maybe this building's a little further away. Again, just pushing and pulling. And maybe we want to emphasize that light direction a little more on that bridge. I'm going to put that underneath my atmosphere. And I can always tone down that layer mask. Just something to emphasize that light direction a little more. Cool. Name these layers, keep it clean. And then I'll just group this whole thing together. Delete the ones that I don't need. So yeah, that's just one of the details added. I've actually already gone and added a bunch of bridges. I just wanted to show you how I did it. This was the one that I added before. and just added a couple more just to give it some visual interest. These big bridges coming around, looping around the top, and some background bridges. Yeah. And we could take a look at our original plate too, just to remember where it started. And where we shifted the plate, which I've been moving around way too much. It's probably a good idea to just lock that. Cool, there we go. Yeah, in the future, just hit this little arrow key over here, and then you won't be able to move that. Then it'll tell you when you're being a dumbass. If I was going to keep going on this, I mean, you could just keep going forever with these with these paintings. There's just so much detail that you can do, and this is really your time to have fun with it. I'd probably add a bunch of signage because it just looks like a dead city right now. It doesn't really have any life, but if you started to add some billboards around, you know, just little pieces here and there, you'd start to give the city a lot more character. You know, maybe sneak some things in here, paint out these signs and add in your own building names. Things like that. And that's also a really good opportunity for you to bring color into it, because right now it's pretty monochromatic. And if we look at the original plate, you can see all of these great little blues and yellows and reds that are just popping up, little billboards. And these things really add a lot of character. Just even grabbing something like this. And if I were to put this on the side of a building, you can see how much it adds. You know, and this isn't an actual element, and I'm not actually confident in, but just to see the variation of colors that you can get from these sorts of things. It'll really bring your painting to life. So just adding a bunch of this stuff will help. And that's when it comes down to how much time can you spend on a painting, and why we want to get efficient with everything else in the painting so we can have more time for these things. But with that, these are the tools. These are the tools to make something like this and to be able to explore. Adding detail is just using the same tools, just more and more and more. And adding billboards and that sort of thing. It's all the same process. It's, you know, if you have a sign and you just make it into a smart object, align it to your perspective, and then just move it to where it needs to go. And that's how you'd add signs everywhere. But I'll stop rambling, and I want you guys to have a chance to play with all of this stuff. So next we'll go over some homework.